what we want to cover is not too magical, but a very important side of this. We're going to cover some of the things about taking care of roses, how they work, and some of the props used for them. Let's begin with, we'll use a rose here, and we'll talk, actually let me get one of the smaller ones like this. We'll use one of the smaller roses. And we need to deal with how to keep them fresh, a very important problem. At my table, I keep a rose set up all the time at my work table at the business the magic shop where I work. And there's always a rose clip behind my table, so it's ready to go all the time. Obviously, keeping that fresh is very important. I keep an adjustable little water container there to where it's always sitting in water, and the water's on a Velcro strip. So I can adjust the height to where I can work anywhere from 6 or 8 inch stems on roses to 18-inch stems or 24-inch stems. It makes no difference, just by adjusting the height of the water container. That works fine if you're in a very precise location like this. If you're not, you need something a little more portable. Say you're going to a party and you want to produce a rose, but the rose might be setting for, 2-3 hours sometimes before the production, or you might buy the rose in the morning. The party's not till that afternoon. Something like that. You want to keep the rose as fresh as possible. I haven't really done that with these roses right here, so they're starting to look a little stale. But one way to do that, and this is available from any florist shop, is a little container here like that. Let me put it over here, and you can see it. Basically, if we take the rose, you'll notice it'll fit down in there like that. So I can have this container completely filled with water ahead of time. And the little rubber cap on here, like that. So it's all sealed. And you can actually do this with several roses. These only cost pennies. You can give them out to the girls if you want, to where she can even carry it around fresh. I generally don't. I generally remove it ahead of time. Although on special occasions where I know the rose is going to be held for a long time, I give the rose out with the container on there. I kind of prefer that not to leave the container on when I'm producing the rose, because it looks like a little more magical, like where did it come from, instead of being stored in a container of water. But it is nice. I do generally have some sitting in my bag so that if a girl is concerned about it and really wants to protect her rose, this is available for her rose. But I'll explain more about specialized roses in a minute. There are many available. Let's talk a little bit about cutting roses. I will use a larger rose for this again. Cutting roses is very important. Actually, you should trim a rose every time you take it out of water. This is not commonly known. We know that we need to trim them, but the reasons why is not commonly known. You want to trim the rose. When you trim it, you want to trim it at as much of an angle as you can, like that. Don't trim it straight across. You notice that leaves a very, very short, narrow surface here on the edge of the rose. But if you trim it at an angle, you've got a lot of surface area there, so a lot of water and a lot of moisture can get up inside. The reason for trimming the rose like this, what a lot of people don't realize is when you take the rose out of the water, air pockets, little air bubbles develop inside here, and they block future flow of the water up into the rose. So you end up, if you take the water out, especially if you leave it out for very long, if you take the rose out of the water, you end up with little air pockets in here. And even though you put it back in the water, your rose may die, and you don't know why. So generally, if I take it out of the water for just a short period of time, I make just small trims like that. They recommend actually you trim it underwater to stop the air pockets. But generally what I do, if I take it out for very long, I'll trim off maybe this much of the rose like that. And that'll get rid of most of the air pockets. And I get pretty good life out of my rose that way. I can get several days out of a rose. So that takes care of trimming. Oh, another thing you can do if you're really concerned about it, instead of just trimming off the piece like this, you can actually take a little hammer, and if you smash the rose a little bit like this, it splits the edges a little bit. And you can end up with a lot more intake of water and prevent some of that air pockets. I don't do that too often, but I do sometimes when I'm really concerned about the life of the roses. Oh, and the petals of the rose. Sometimes the petals get to looking pretty bad. It's okay when you're dealing with rose to take and just remove a few of the outer petals like this. And what that'll do is it will take an older rose like this and make it look considerably newer and considerably younger. And it also makes it much easier to handle for palming like this. Okay, so if you're palming it, makes it much easier, or if you're doing a flip stick move like that, you'll get less chance of a petal flashing over the edge like that, which is very important. So usually remove them. Don't remove too many. I'm going to do it on this one, but you can see you can safely remove several, and it still looks pretty good. That still looks like a pretty good rose. But if I start removing much more than that, it's not going to look right. And if I'm doing much palming or flip sticks, I do usually remove the leaves, or I'll leave one. If you want to keep the leaves a little tighter so you can do it, pull the leaves up like this and get some floral tape from your florist or from a floral shop. It's a green tape that matches the stems. And if you wrap the floral tape around the limb, it'll hold the limb up a little tighter like that, which keeps the leaves on and makes them much easier to work with for manipulation of the rose. Okay, so removing the petals. I'm referring to my notes over here, so bear with me. I want to make sure that I don't miss any of this. I think these are pretty important points. Occasionally on stage, you want to add a little emphasis to the rose. I don't personally do this, but I think it's good, and a lot of magicians will, so I'll point it out. If you take a rose like this, or a larger rose, and take a little spray bottle, such as this, and just spray it a little bit, like that. A couple of things will happen. You'll end up with a little shinier rose like that, which will look good under the spotlights a little better. And another thing you can do, and I do recommend this if you want this kind of effect. Again, I don't do it, but I think it's a good effect, where you take and spray the rose, and you can even spray it if you want with one of the glue sprays or something like that you spray on it, and then take a fine glitter and just sprinkle a little bit of glitter over there. It'll stick to the rose. You'll get a lot of sparkle on the rose from the stage, and it can be a very, very beautiful effect. I've seen it done. I've used it a little bit, played with it a little bit, but I haven't actually added it to my act. I prefer the more natural looking rose. I rarely use silk roses in my act. I use almost 100% natural roses, but that'll give you an idea with that. Meaning of the rose color, also very important. I'm going to use my pad here just a little bit for this one. There's a lot of discrepancy on what the color of the rose means. The American Rose Society is one of the meanings here, although I find that that's not frequently the meanings that go over good in magic. So I'll explain a couple of variations here. The American Rose Society says the red rose stands for love, respect. The deep pink rose for gratitude, appreciation. Light pink for admiration and sympathy. The white rose for reverence and humility. Yellow rose, joy and goodness. And orange rose, enthusiasm and desire. The red-yellow rose, gaiety and joyety. And the pale blended rose for sociability and friendship. Those are fine, although I do find in the shows the ones that I use most often is basically three colors of the roses. The red rose, love and respect. That's most people will readily accept that one. The white rose for purity works very good, and humility. And the yellow rose for friendship. A lot of people associate their yellow rose also with friendship. So you might consider those three. Those, in my acts, are the three meanings I use most often. Red for love, white for purity, and yellow for friendship. Okay, in this segment, I want to talk a little bit about specialized roses. There's a lot of specialized roses available. They come in pads. Sometimes you'll find them in magic stores, sometimes you won't. We talked a little while ago about the folding rose, the one that just folds up like this. I've seen several different versions of this available. This I've only seen in magic stores. But mainly keep an eye open for roses, any place you might find a rose. Magic stores, of course, check with them regularly. They might have roses. Or check with things like flower shops. You'll frequently find specialized roses. Or I've even found, for example, this one right here. It looks very good, very beautiful looking rose. I've seen it sold in magic stores. I've seen it sold in florists. I've seen it sold in jewelry shops and department stores. It's a beautiful rose. Not everybody knows what it is, but it can be used. The nice thing about this, and I'll explain a little bit more about it, is this particular one, you could take earlier in your show, borrow the ring from the lady you're going to give a rose from. Make her ring vanish. In the course of the next couple of tricks, what you're going to do is load this ring into the rose. You notice if I open this compartment here, you have what looks like a jewelry box that the ring sits beautifully right inside there. Say earlier in a routine, the lady you're going to give a rose for, you would borrow her ring, and through any of the tricks that you might normally do, make the ring vanish. But this time, don't find it. You might have this rose loaded in any secret place you're going to produce it from. For example, behind the table here like this. You would do the trick, her ring would vanish. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, let me do a card trick instead or whatever. And during that time, just simply place the ring in the rose, do a couple more tricks, and then when you're done with this particular spectator, do any of your rose productions, produce the rose like that, and show her that her ring is inside. And I'm sure she'll be impressed. Other roses, to give you an idea of what might be available, this particular one is very interesting in the fact that it was found in Disneyland, but you can find them in many other places. They were selling them to every kid on the block. It makes a beautiful production rose for me because it has a battery mechanism in here and a light up there. So all I have to do is simply flip the switch and the rose lights. Now, I've seen similar versions available in magic shops. You can find them in magic shops, and I would certainly check there. But you can also find them in other places, too. But again, it gives you an idea of some of the types of things you can do with a rose. If you work with a delight mechanism, I won't go into that unless you know what it is, but basically a method of producing light from the fingertips. You could reach over, grab a color of light, pluck it on the rose, your rose turns red, pluck it away, and add the rose color routine to that particular routine. Another rose that's available with many, many magic shops is this particular rose. I do recommend it. It's very nice. For example, if I was to take the bud off here like this, toss it away, oh, it comes back. We'll do it again. Comes back. Toss it away. I'm just thumb palming it. I'm not trying to fool you here right now. I'm just trying to give you some of the ideas of what you can do. All I'm really doing is filling off the rose, tossing it away, and as I toss it away, just thumb palm it. And you can have a continuous production of a rose to your pocket or whatever, or to a basket where later you're going to produce a bud of roses like that. You can produce it to your pocket. You can also do color changes with this. Basically, this is just a foam rose with a magnet set up right here on the tip like that. So when you're thumb palming one rose here like that, when you steal it off, the other one goes on. So thumb palm that like that. It's a little easier to see with the two different colors there. Like that. Okay, and one more special rose. I'm not going to try and show everything available. There's tons of them. They're hard to find, but they are available. But occasionally you might want to do this one yourself. This is an unusual effect. Sometimes I want to produce a dead rose. How do you do that? I do it mainly for comedy effect. I've got two different versions here, right this. I do it mainly for comedy or for joke, but they're actually quite rugged. These are dead roses. Roses are kind of interesting in the fact, or any flower, if you take them and just hang them up or let them out dry. After about 6 days, they dry very nicely like this, and you can use them like that, and they're strong enough to actually use with any of the normal productions that you would do. So you could easily, for the appropriate occasion, produce a dead rose. One trick, you'll notice I have two different types here. This one is dried by hanging it from the stem down like that, and it keeps pretty much the original petal shape. This one, the reason it looks this way, and these were done with red roses, by the way. The reason it looks this way is it was dried standing up in a vase, and of course it folds over like that. An unusual effect, not for everybody, but sometimes a nice comedy effect, and I strongly recommend it if you want to produce dead roses. Pick the colors, try it with different colors. The red ones probably dry the best, but you can also do it with pink, yellow, any color rose, white rose. They all dry very nicely like this. Hope you enjoyed this segment on special roses. We need to talk a little bit about holders for roses, such as the clip behind my back and the opening scene and what have you. There's many different ways you can do that. I'm going to bring out one of my favorite ones here. Is simply a playing card. If I undo this, you can see that I've taken a playing card here, cut it, put a safety pin on it like this, and I took a hole punch and notched a hole here, notched a hole there. I use this clip a lot. It's a very easy clip to work with. And by the way, I use this also for coin work and card work sometimes. Works very good. So basically this is what you have. You can attach this to your clothing any place that you want. And then if you take a rose, just stick it in the clip like that. You've got, I don't know how much of this is showing, like that. Okay. So then you can easily just spill the rose right out anytime that you want. Let me do that again. Here, I'll break it off to a shorter rose. Maybe that'll make it a little easier to see here. Okay, so if we were going to clip it like that, there would be your rose. Maybe I'll strip off a couple of leaves here. I'm not trying to make this rose look pretty. I'm trying to show you the method here. Okay, good. So it would be like that, clipped on there, and then you can easily just still the rose right out like that. So if it was clipped behind your back, still it from behind your back like that. That's one method, works very, very good. Another method that I use a lot is a little clip like this with a spring mechanism that I've attached to the back. The nice thing about a spring is I can take this and clip it on the edge of a table like that, or anywhere. I can clip it on my clothing, anywhere like that. And then the rose just simply connects in the spring like that. And then whenever you want it, you just steal it right off. Very, very convenient method of holding. Actually, you could put a couple of roses on there and then clip it any place that you want. And when you want your rose, boom, there it is. You've got a very quick method of grabbing the rose. One more that I use frequently. First off, before I do that, let me pull this off the back of the table here. The table production that I did was just simply a clothespin taped to the back, held the rose like this, and then we just steal it out. At work, or in my portable table that I use, I frequently use a piece of foam like this, which I've taken and cut slits in there like that. I can set this underneath my table, and I can have, just by sticking the roses in the slits like this, I can have as many as 5 or 6 roses ready to set up and instantly produce roses for 5 or 6 girls right in a row. Just boom, one, immediately another. So I could actually produce them to several girls immediately without an additional setup time. It's a very, very Not a very pretty method from the magician side, but definitely very effective and very easy to work with. Okay, one other thing you need to do is we need to learn a little bit about what I call taping the rose. Pretend like this is a piece of Scotch tape. I'm using a different kind of tape here because I want you to be able to see it, and Scotch tape wouldn't show up too well on the camera. But I've got a little piece of Scotch tape here and the rose. Now what we're going to do is the roses, a lot of times, especially as you handle them a lot, the petals stick out like this, which makes them okay for looking good, but it's very difficult for handling them or hiding them behind your hand or something like this. So what I do is I take a piece of Scotch tape, the sticky side out, not towards the petals, wrap it around the petals like this, like that, and that holds the petals together. Okay, pretend like that Scotch tape, it wouldn't look near that bad. Okay, and I would do a much neater job of it. I'm not going to try and take as much time. Sometimes I spend quite a bit of time doing that. But we make it the Scotch tape around there like that. That holds the petals together, which makes them very easy to handle, to work with. And then when you're ready to get the rose and steal it away, all you got to do is just pretend like you smell the rose, slide off the Scotch tape, and then you can toss out the rose, and nothing's to the wiser for the person.